Welcome to this video from NTG Precision Engineering. The North East of England has a tremendous legacy in the automotive industry, which is continuing as we move away from petrol and diesel vehicles towards the electrification of transport. Joining me to discuss how the region's supply chain is contributing to the drive to electric is Mike Hutchinson, Managing Director of NTG Precision Engineering, and down the line we have Paul Butler, Chief Executive of the North East Automotive Alliance. Paul, turning to you first, can you give us a quick view of what the North East Automotive Alliance is and the region's supply chain cluster?
Yeah, definitely. So the North East Automotive Alliance were a not-for-profit organisation that was established by industry to support the sustainable economic growth and competitiveness of the North East automotive sector. Today, we're the largest automotive cluster in the UK, and we provide an unparalleled collaborative network where companies come together and benefit from the leadership and coordination of activities of mutual benefit. So our vision for the cluster is that we'll be the catalyst through which the North East becomes a location of choice for automotive investment in Europe, and that will be recognised as a true automotive powerhouse with a very dynamic and forward-looking and competitive supply chain, but also that incorporates strengths in research, development and innovation in the new automotive technologies and manufacturing processes such as electrification.
Hey, so give us a bit more of a history lesson then. How has the automotive supply chain evolved to be able to serve electrification as well as it did with sort of more of the sort of traditional automotive?
Our electrification heritage dates back to the 1920s when Smith's electric vehicles first started manufacturing electric trams. But if you look at our current capability and we look at the finished vehicles that are manufactured here, you've obviously got Nissan, who produced Europe's most successful battery electric vehicle with the Nissan Leaf. They committed and we built the first ever gigafactory here in Europe's first ever gigafactory here in the Northeast. But if you look at the other OEMs, we've got Komatsu who launched a very successful hybrid excavator. And I know they've got plans at the moment to develop a full electric version for the European market. That's being designed at the moment in Japan. You've got Libre cranes who've got an electrified mobile harbour crane. And then we've got Nissan's Qashqai, which has got the first deployment of the innovative e-power powertrain solution from Nissan as well. So when you look at that capability, there's some real excellence here in the Northeast that other regions simply cannot compete with.
Obviously, Nissan been a catalyst, but you also talked about electrification going back to 1920s. I'm assuming obviously the automotive went back that far as well. So why is North East so important to the automotive industry and EV?
Well, we manufacture around a third of all UK vehicles are produced in the North East. We have the largest production facility in the UK, the most efficient and productive car plant in the UK. So we've got a very, very strong sector. We've got a world-class supply chain as well. Something like 200 companies in the automotive supply chain are based in the North East. So we have some real strong capability from which to grow from. And obviously we've benefited from Nissan's commitment to electrification. They were the leaders in electrification from the automotive sector, and that certainly stood us in good stead as a region to capitalise on this global megatrend.
So tell us, how does North East Automotive Alliance support companies like NTG that we have here, how to support supply chain companies and build their presence in the market?
So we, as a cluster organisation, we come together with industry to identify the key themes that they want us to work on. Areas that they feel is the best chance for us to capitalise on our strengths or for us to work together to try and address key challenges. So we've worked very closely with industry. We've set out a 5-year strategy around bringing together the network and really driving collaboration. We're focused on skills as well, as you would imagine, all the way from school engagement through to informing current workforce. We work with companies around business resilience, making them as efficient as possible, sharing best practice. We support trade and investment, and also we support companies around their innovation agenda, both in terms of how they manufacture the products, but also in terms of the technologies that are going into these new vehicles. So we work across a broad sector of areas to support industry. And we also looked at how we can bring in public funding to support companies in those areas. So we run a number of publicly funded programs as well that companies can benefit from. So it's quite broad, and individual companies will pick certain elements as to the type of the support they need for us for the sector.
Thanks, Paul. That's great. But before I bring Mike in, we had the opportunity to speak to another company based in the North East, heavily involved in the electrification of transport, and that's Turntide, a US company, and they've invested $100 million in the region to electrify challenging areas of the transport sector like rail and off-highway. And we spoke to Senior Vice President Chris Pennison.
The North East become a key region for EV technology, really driven by Nissan and their early adoption with the Leaf some 10 years ago. I think that really drove the supply chain and the infrastructure to really think about how it supported not just Nissan, but what would become the eventual growth of EV technology globally. Turntide was attracted to the region, one, talent density. The skill that is in the region is really second to none. But bringing together three businesses for Turntide to really be able to support the EV revolution, or really the electric revolution that's going on, from whether thermal pumps, whether it's battery or energy storage systems, and really powertrains. Turntide wanted to step into the long tail of electrification in difficult and challenging environments outside the traditional OEM EV sector. So bringing the three businesses together gave us the perfect opportunity to get a foot on that ladder. For us, being part, and not just for us, but for anybody to be part of an integrated supply chain, gives you control of what you're doing. It helps you manage your customers and supply your customers. But if the supply chain isn't integrated, then we see things like the Suez Canal incident where ships get blocked or stuff like that. That then brings a challenge just to make sure that we can support our customers or any customers. So integrated supply chain, absolutely key. Bringing in an end-to-end solution is key for our customers as well. So fundamental to have that integration with your supply chain. Some of our key suppliers, absolutely Northeast based, and then they can support us. It then reduces supply chain length, it reduces supply chain risk, it allows you to be agile, it allows you to really drive home points of difference to your customers. As I always say to our customers, if you're buying energy storage systems or batteries for us, that will not be what stops you building your vehicles or executing on your plan, because we manage the supply chain locally and globally.
So, from Turntide to NTG. Mike, thanks for joining us. Tell us about the business and a bit of history, where it comes from, where it's going. We'll come on to that. And what position it takes in the supply chain.
Okay, so NTG's been around for over 40 years now, trading out of the Northeast and on the Gateshead, on the Team Valley trading estate. We've been supplying many different sectors across that, starting with our history as a tool maker. We supply different components in that across that sector, and then across many different sectors since then. Everything from the food sector to the oil and gas sector to the energy sector, and more latterly into the electrification sector. So that's where we're based.
How long have you been involved in electrification?
So probably in real sense for about the last 5 years. We've been working. We originally started working with universities in research areas. So our sort of history is being able to take people from prototype right the way through to production. So we've worked with the universities in terms of doing their initial research, their development, their prototyping, and then take them into sort of early production phases. And so we've been working, as I say, for over 5 years now in that sector, and then gradually building up to doing more work with some of the larger OEMs and tier one suppliers in the market.
So what capabilities do you bring to the market then? I mean, obviously precision engineering, that must be very important when you're producing components for electrification.
Yeah, so obviously with our history as a tool maker, we're able to work to microns where others might work to less exacting tolerances. And sometimes when you're working in these sectors where high speed, high velocity capabilities or high voltage real precision is required when microns count, and it's critical to the performance of the parts itself. So we bring everything from CNC machining, 5-axis machining, through to EDM, through to precision grinding capabilities, which is not what all people in our sector are able to do. We got it all under one roof. So that's one of the real benefits that we can bring. We can bring a full capability, as well as working with some of our other partner companies to be able to supply other services.
What sort of products do you actually, and what components do you produce for electrification?
So we make everything throughout. We've made parts right the way throughout the EV powertrain. So we've been making parts for the battery facilities, whether that's in terms of equipment that goes into actually making the batteries, or components that actually go into the battery packs themselves. We've also been making components for electric motors, for gearboxes, for drivetrains, and also in some respect, with some companies actually making the tooling for actually making the specialist winding equipment that goes into making some of the parts for the electric motors themselves as well.
Paul told us a little bit about why he thinks North East is a great place to be part of the automotive and the electrification supply chain. Give us your view.
Well, Paul referred to the level of investment and the level of history that there's obviously going on in the area. So I think there's not only are there's some fantastic universities, there's a huge amount of innovation going on in the universities, the likes of the CPI, and also in terms of the Drive the Electric Revolution innovation centres. So there's a huge amount of innovation going on, which I think is fantastic. There's also a history of real OEMs, likes of Nissan, and also a huge amount of companies in the tier 1, tier 2 level that are also got that history and that capability to continue to drive the investment and the market further.
That's great. And finally, obviously, the demand for electrification can only increase. So how's NTG going to increase its own capacity and capabilities to be able to meet the growing demand?
So a number of ways we're doing that. So we've been continuing to invest, and always have invested heavily in our capabilities, so our CNC capabilities, whether that's grinding, whether that's the latest 5-axis machining capabilities. But we're also investing in new facilities, so we also need the space. So we've already moved twice in the Team Valley. This year we'll be moving for our third time to another facility that'll give us the space to be able to grow for the next 5 or 10 years, to be able to cope with this, what we see as a growing market in the area, and will continue to grow. We're also continuing to invest in our apprentices and our young engineers. So our engineers, every year we invest in around about 10% of our workforce is new engineers that will hopefully fill the population of engineers required for the long term. And the final piece of that is we're also acquisitive, so we're also growing by acquisition, which will also be looking at companies that are investing and continuing to grow in this market as well.
That's great. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time. Paul, thank you very much for your time as well. That's great. And also thanks to Chris Pennison from Turntide too. To find out more about NTG and its work in the electrification sector and other industries, visit the website.